Hey everybody, happy Sunday. This is episode 3 of Better Together. Again, my name is Justin, and this week we're going to be talking about checking in. This is a book that I got from Michelle Williams about a week or so ago when she came to visit our employer. It's a really great book. I highly suggest that you guys go and read it. You will not regret it. It's really, really funny. What I appreciate about this book is that you can hear her personality through the words on the paper. It's definitely black and white, but you get a sense of her personality. It's very funny. She tells a lot of jokes. It's really, really relatable. Like, you can see all of my notes that I've made. So it's just so many different experiences and journeys that she talks about here that are completely relatable to that was relatable to my own life. I'll make it personal, but I truly believe it'll be relatable to yours as well. If you've missed the first 2 episodes, you can definitely check those out. They are on the IG Live on my page. They're also on Facebook, Justin J. White. And if you can check them out on my website, which is justinjwhite.com. I posted them already, so definitely go and watch if you missed them, and just enjoy and type some comments. What resonated with you the most? So again, we are going to check in today. Again, I'm gonna try to keep this short, which I know I like to talk, so it is what it is. One thing that she talks about in her book, like about checking in, and this is on page 5, and I like to give you guys the page numbers, like I said previously, just so if you want to follow along, if you get the book. She says it takes a certain amount of personal effort to create a check-in experience that's good for our hearts. Can't nobody else know exactly what we need to say, do, or scrub to create a peaceful place for us to rest. That was impactful for me, and it resonated with me because checking in, of course, it's benefits to talking to your friends and your family, but no one knows what you need like you do. And so there's a place of fulfillment that needs to come only from you, and that takes time I guess I should say that takes place by really checking in with yourself and really knowing what you need. I was having a conversation with my friend Trey the other day, and one thing that we were talking about is basically purpose over pleasure. Like, our flesh and our body, it wants certain things, but we can't always give in to our flesh. It may feel good, but it's not necessarily good for us. And so, as we were talking, some things that I asked him is when you want to do something that you are conflicted over, ask yourself, is this serving my purpose or God's purpose for my life? Is this really serving other people? In a good way? Is it going to have a positive impact on other people? Is it going to have a positive impact on myself? If you can answer those questions with yes, then you can definitely participate in whatever that action is that you want to do. And that's just a part of checking in. And a part of your joy, a part of your fulfillment is going to come from really knowing what makes you happy and whatever your desires are, as long as they're aligned with really serving a good purpose. A question that I wrote here that I annotated in the margins is, what needs cleansing in my life? What have I accepted from others as a way that it is? And the reason that I asked that question is because she was given this scenario where she says she loves hotels, she loves to check in, she loves to be pampered, all those things. But she was talking about how sometimes the hotels they're turned over so quickly that, some things get missed. They don't maybe clean the showers good as they should. And they don't clean off the surfaces in the hotel rooms as good as they should. So she always brings her own cleaning supplies, X, Y, and Z, to the hotels to clean before she basically is comfortable in there. But how many of us have checked into a hotel and we look around and it's the appearance of cleanliness, I should say, and we just accept what it is. We go ahead and unpack our suitcases, we lay in the bed, we take a shower without really thinking about there could possibly be something nasty in this shower or something nasty in this bed that wasn't necessarily clean. And so what inspired that question is, Why do we sometimes accept things as the way they is from other people just because they say it is what it is? It doesn't necessarily make it true. So another part of checking in is just making sure that you are really just clean, you know what I'm saying? Spiritually cleaning and physically cleaning to make sure your environment is fit for your personal needs, your spiritual needs, X, Y, and Z. So that was really impactful. Again, that was like on page 5. There was a couple other things in here, so I'm gonna be jumping around because I want you guys to really just get an idea of what she talked about. Another part of checking in, and for me, you guys know, like I talked about this last week, my parents are pastors. She talked about the relationship that we have with God. So she said, that's because a relationship with God is just that, a relationship. It needs the same care, attention, and communication as any other growing, changing relationship. That was impactful for me because like the more you nurture that relationship with God, the more you pray, and the more you spend time with Him, the more you will learn whatever those needs are. And that goes back to the point that I just made. Sometimes our flesh wants one thing, but it's not necessarily what our spirit needs. So recently I fasted. I talked about that last week. And so in a fast, what you do is basically deprive your flesh of things that it wants, things that it likes. And those things aren't always necessarily aligned with what your spirit needs. So when you are depriving your flesh of some things that it wants, then your spirit can really speak to you in a louder voice, a more clear voice, and really provide you with the things that you ultimately really, really need. And so you're able to rearrange your life and rearrange your priorities in a way that really feeds your spirit versus feeding your flesh. And that goes back to what I was saying. That's having purpose over pleasure. And honestly, you get more fulfillment in life and more gratitude in life when you are living in your purpose versus living in your pleasure. So I want you guys to think about that. And she says, and this is on page 10, to put it simply, we just ain't ready. We haven't prepared ourselves, our hearts, or our communities in a way that sets us up for success when unavoidable happens. But maybe more importantly, we haven't grounded ourselves in what God says about us. And until we're able to base our identity on His truth, we can't know how to check in with ourselves or anyone else. That was super, super impactful. Again, back to having purpose over pleasure. When you check in with God, when you make that decision to say, okay, I'm going to deny myself these things that I like and things I love doing. They may feel good, but they may not necessarily be good for us. And you spend that time with God, you sacrifice basically your flesh and you devote that time back to God or back to yourself, then you really get a chance to basically check in and really spend time thinking about and concentrating on what's really good for you. And once you do that, you're able to live a more fulfilled life. You'll find yourself being in a better state, a happier place, and not necessarily devaluing yourself. Now, I will say one thing about the fast that I was on. I was not engaging in sex. And so one thing that I learned through that is that I needed to appreciate myself, my body, my flesh more, because it's way more valuable than I was giving myself credit for. And that may be a lot of us struggle, right? I'm perfectly fine admitting that and being transparent with that. But you have to really safeguard yourself, your energy, your spirit, even your flesh from other people, or sharing it with other people, so you won't devalue yourself, because ultimately it's a distraction from you living inside of your purpose and your own destiny. As I'm talking, I really want you guys to just comment in the comment box, or whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Comment and let me know what's resonating with you. It's another part in here that I want to talk about because last week I kind of shared with you guys the journey with my mother and how that kind of played into my view of myself and how I was using like the relationships that I was in to really just seek love and identity when I really should have been seeking that from God. In here, she talks about, and this is around page 32, she talks about her family and growing up, how there was like basically dysfunction in the family, right? Basically seeing her mother and her father argue all the time and not really representing what love should look like, what care should look like in the family unit, and them going on just not really talking about it. And they really swept a lot of those issues under the rug and never really dealt with them. And so as a little girl, that kind of planted some seeds in her, which later in her life really just spilled over into her relationships, not just her intimate relationships with her partners, but also her relationships with her friends, and even being a member of Destiny's Child. So in regards to her family, she says, "We swept everything under the rug and went about our lives as if everything and everyone was happy. I never learned how to talk about what I was feeling because no one around me did." And so instantly I wrote down some questions in the margins. I said, how do we get past this as a community? Because that just isn't her story. That's a lot of our stories. We have issues in our families, especially when I'm speaking to us, the black community. We have a lot of issues in our family, and we don't talk about those things because of shame, because of pride, because of whatever the reason is that we don't discuss those things. And those seeds manifest into some dark things that we ultimately take on with us in our adult lives, in our relationships, how we raise our children, how we treat our coworkers, how we treat ourselves, how we treat our friends. And so a lot of that toxicity is spilled over, and we don't realize that it's really stemmed from how we grew up and what we saw going on in our households. And that's super important to me because I can admit that there was some dysfunction in my family. I talked about that last week, my relationship with my mom. And there were other, dysfunctions in the family as well. And I can see how those definitely trickled over or triggered over into my adult life. Recently, my sister, she was sharing with me how there was this big spat between my cousins and them over a family trip. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have been there too. And so because the trip didn't go as planned, there was some really bad words exchanged between family members. And my sister was calling me on the phone and she was telling me what happened. And then my name got drugged in. I'm like, see, it made me think about the Nene thing. Like, how I get drugged in today? I ain't even did nothing. I don't even talk to them, and not in a bad way. I'm just busy, and so some of the things that she shared with me were just really, in regards to family, a lot of it shocked me because a lot of it I'd never heard. A lot of it disappointed me because some of the people that I've looked up to were really involved in those discussions. And it really saddened me that by listening to those conversations, I could tell that a lot of hurt had taken place, and ultimately there needed to be a lot of healing to take place as well. And so had we learned how to communicate our feelings and our experiences with each other in a safe and loving environment growing up, then we wouldn't be adults walking around still holding on to hurt and still turning that hurt into a weapon or to a dagger to try to shoot when we're not happy or when we're in the midst of an argument. Of course, I'm not going to share any details, one, because I wasn't a part of the discussion. This is just how the discussion went according to my sister. But just hearing that, and from my own personal experiences with family members, like, we do hold on to a lot of hurt. And in the Black community specifically, a lot of our families weren't able to just communicate our feelings in a healthy way. And so we need to be purposeful about how we are treating each other, how we are expressing ourselves to one another, and not feeling shame or guilt when it comes to expressing ourselves or our feelings, because ultimately it's not healthy. And we don't realize how that impacts us as adults and how that kind of spills over into our relationships with our friends, with our loved ones, with our partners, even our relationships at work. And I shared a lot about that in the last video, how my family dysfunction, especially between the relationship of my mother and I, how that impacted me and my relationships, how I viewed myself, how I valued myself. And so those are things, even at 33 years of age, that I'm still working through, that I'm still unlearning, that I'm still trying to cope with, so I can be a better person, so I can be a better son, so I can be a better uncle to my nieces and nephews, so I can be a better partner in the future. All those things is critical and it's crucial. So as you're watching this, I want you to really think about that and how you're going to move forward. Last thing, so I can keep this short. She says, failure to check in with yourself always leads to some sort of emotional outburst that damages or ends a relationship. And so in the first video, I talked about this book called the 7 Laws of Success. And in that, it basically said every relationship you have is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. And so when we aren't checking in with ourselves, we aren't checking in with that past hurt, that past trauma, we're not dealing with that. And like I just said, we're ultimately going to shift those experiences over to someone else, and we're gonna hurt them. And there's this saying, it's really cliche, but it says hurt people, and it's very, very true. But we have the power to stop that. And that's one of the purposes of this forum, this Better Together. Like, the more we share, the more we learn with each other, then the better we all become as a community. And so that's why I don't mind coming on here and being transparent about the things that I experience, because I want you guys to learn from my experiences, and I want to learn from those. Life, our experiences, our friends, they're all teachers. And if you really pay attention to everything going on in your circle and in your environment, you will ultimately have a bunch of teachers. And so you have to be in the mindset of always learning, of always being in that state of everything is a lesson, and really not taking things personal, but really having that perspective of, I'm going to use this experience, I'm going to use this situation to check in with myself, to check in with my feelings, be real with myself, and really use this as a learning experience so I can get better myself, so I can help others get better, so I can keep going and motivate others and keep pushing and get to the next level. Never become stagnant, never become so just routine that you aren't checking in with yourself, that you aren't learning, that you aren't getting better each and every day. And so ultimately, I know I've said a lot, so I'm gonna try to cut this short. That was pretty much the message of her book. There was a lot that I wasn't able to discuss because of time. As you guys see, I have plenty of notes, plenty of annotations. This is Checking In. It's by Michelle Williams. If you do not have it, I encourage you to get it. It's a quick read. It's only about 200 or some pages, but like I said, it doesn't even feel like you're reading because she's telling a lot of jokes as well, so you get a chance to hear her personality as you are really learning about who she is. And so much of it is relatable. And I don't think you're gonna regret picking that up and giving it a read. So anyway, I want you guys to comment, I want you guys to like, I want you guys to share this video, and I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is a weekly community forum, so you'll be hearing a lot more from us. We'll be having some guest speakers, like I said, coming in the future. And it'll be just regular people like you and I that also have an experience and a journey that they want to share. Next week, we'll be talking about Stronger Than You Think. I alluded to this last week. I'm going to start this tomorrow, but we'll be talking about this next Sunday. It's by Joel Osteen. Again, it's called Stronger Than You Think. So get ready to hear some more goodness coming to you. In the meantime, I want you guys to go to my website, which is justinjwhite.com. There you can watch the previous 2 episodes. You can watch this one. Again, comment, rate, subscribe, like, share, all those things. Until then, I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.